Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I have a topic that is hopefully going to be useful to all viewers, whether Muslim or non-Muslim. And it's the topic of how we can show more kindness. And I'm going to share my thoughts from an Islamic lens, and hopefully we can learn one or two things. So, how can we show more kindness towards our brothers and towards all others? In general. So the first tip, the first idea that kindness is something that we can give is to take more responsibility. So in a sense, um, we can only share, we can only give of the things that we have within ourselves. So essentially, when we take more responsibility for things, when we have more of a burden on our own shoulders, essentially we're able to help more. We are able to give of the things that we have. So if we have certain spiritual gifts or physical means, when we have more of a responsibility that rests on our shoulders, we have more of a capacity to give to others. And the flip side of that is if we are lacking in any area, whether that's in our character or in any physical means as well as physical means are also important and as well. If we're lacking in any area, we can't help others. Let's say if we don't have kindness within ourselves, if we don't have goodness within ourselves, it's very hard to share this. So when we take responsibility for let's say the goodness of others, or for being as kind as we possibly can to others, um, we can share this as well as much as we can. But the opposite effect of this is if we don't have have goodness to share, it's really hard to actually offer something that we may or may not have. So take responsibility and try to make it your mission to spread as much kindness, as much peace, as much joy, and as much goodness as you can. Now, the second point, the second tip to how we can show more kindness is to seek knowledge. Now, the thing about knowledge, from my understanding, is knowledge creates understanding, and understanding in itself creates empathy. So, when we seek knowledge, we essentially try to understand the things that we don't understand. So, we can understand things about others in a sense that has, um, I guess, that helps us to see people in a more redeeming light. So, basically, the more knowledge we seek, the more we know about what we don't know, the more we reflect and understand that people aren't necessarily perfect, and we can be a lot more empathetic. And this goes for ourselves as well. We tend to find out that we're not perfect models ourselves. So when we seek knowledge, this helps us to sort of break down the barriers to understanding one another, understanding ourselves, and also helps us to be more sympathetic to others. I guess when we find out the flaws that can exist within ourselves, and also the differences between others, and how they may or may not be as big as we might perceive. So the other thing about knowledge is it can soften our perspectives. So when we learn, we essentially, yeah, I guess it's the same as what I've already said. We essentially find out more about the things that we may think that we understand, and as a matter of fact, we may not have the complete full picture. So it helps us to realize that us as humans are not necessarily perfect, and we can be kinder as a result. So that's the second thing, seek knowledge. Now, another thing, in order to have the capacity to show more kindness to others, is to find good teachers. So in an Islamic sense, I guess, because I don't know how others necessarily see the role of having a teacher or having teachers in their lives is, but for us, I know it's important. And basically, having a good teacher can deepen our understanding of religious issues and matters of the heart. So I guess look for good teachers. Look for teachers that can deepen our understanding of religious issues. And by religious issues, I mean the matters that soften our hearts, the matters that basically help us to have more empathy, help us to see people in a more human light, and help us to see past the little things, the things that don't matter as much as the more important things, the things that unite us. So that's a thing about finding teachers. And also, I've probably touched on this already, but find teachers that are grounded and understand human issues. So we don't want to isolate ourselves and find someone that's going to harden our perspectives and necessarily box people out of our spheres. We want to find grounded and empathetic teachers that are going to help us to see the human side of people and see the side of people that is lovable, and the side of people that we can also love. So that is a thing about that's what I have to say about finding a teacher in order to help us to have more empathy and more sympathy and more understanding of others, in order to have an ability to be more kind. Now, another thing, in order to help us to show more kindness, is to remember our weaknesses. It is our weaknesses that make us more humble. So when we remember that we are not perfect human beings, and we essentially can falter, we can make mistakes, and we are essentially weak, it helps us to keep in mind these things, and it also helps us to realize that we need others as well. We can't do life all by ourselves, and when we realize our own shortcomings, we realize how much of a blessing it is to belong to a community or a society that essentially co-depends, and a society that relies on each other's strengths as much as we can be aware of our own shortcomings. So that's something about our weaknesses, and knowing our weaknesses can also increase our empathy. So when we realize that we have shortcomings, this can essentially help us to be more kind to others, because I guess I've already said it, but it helps us to realize that others may also have shortcomings, and it's something that we have in common, the fact that we're all struggling essentially, and we are all trying our hardest to do the best we can. So that is another thing. Now, I have a few more things, and I'll just get through them quickly. One way we can show more kindness towards others is to remember our shared duty. So basically, when we realize that we are all trying to push one another towards success, we realize that we have a lot more in common. So basically, when we kind of realize that we're in this big collective, we're all trying to help one another to be as good as we possibly can. We kind of essentially rely on each other's strengths. So it's a good perspective to have, to remember that life is not a big solo effort. It's essentially a big team effort essentially. We're all trying to be successful together, and when we realize this ideal that we're all trying to achieve success together, it helps us to work together, and it helps us to grow, and it helps us to share in each other's successes as well. Now, this is probably a more Islamic reminder, and it is to keep to our duty. So when we are strict, this reminds us of the need to tame our egos, and it helps us to impart as much kindness as we can towards others. So basically, I've talked about this in some of my other videos, and it is essentially the need to balance our egos, our nafs, with our higher self, I guess. So when we are essentially practicing our duties, prayer, fasting, charity, basically what this does is it purifies us, and it basically helps us to also enforce as much good as we possibly can. These pillars of ours that we strive to maintain help us to realize that there's a bigger goal, that we are striving to purify ourselves that may have tendencies to be harsh when we keep to our duties and do all of the things that we should do as Muslims. We basically give ourselves the ability to do as much good and impart as much kindness at the same time towards others, and it's very important to do all these things as well. Now, the last thing that I've got down is to memorize the Quran. So basically, when we know our book and we know our duty, we know what is the best thing to do in every circumstance. So basically, learning the Quran is a very rewarding and a very fruitful activity. So the more we do it, the more we learn, the more we practice, we can essentially we can react to scenarios in the best possible way, and we can have as much perspective as we can. So when we know what Allah is telling us to do, we can have as much kindness and as much sympathy and as much understanding in the right situations as possible, and we can always be as good as we possibly can be. So that's everything I want to share for today. If you've gained anything from this video, please like, share the video, and have a good day. So thank you very much, and stay tuned for more.